At midnight, a shrill scream rang out from Consort Zhong's bedchamber, claiming that something had happened to Sovereign Ning Yuanxian. Meanwhile, in the bathroom of the Marquis of Chongping's mansion, Shenlang, having just finished detoxifying the Sword King's wife, was comfortably soaking in a wooden tub, enjoying Jean Mulan's tenderness. Suddenly, he turned his head and pulled Jean Mulan, speaking with a ruffian and teasing tone. "Why don't you come in and wash with me?" Hearing this, Jean Mulan's cheeks immediately burned hot, and she refused shyly. "Husband, stop messing around. Didn't you say you were tired?" However, before she could finish speaking, Shenlang exerted a slight force with his arm, and Jean Mulan let out a cry of surprise as she fell into the warm wooden tub. At this moment, amidst the misty steam, the two looked into each other's eyes. Under the foil of the mist, Jean Mulan's brows and eyes appeared even more delicate and charming, her crimson lips revealing a tempting luster that made one unable to resist wanting to kiss them. Shenlang's heart heated up, and just as he was about to lean down to kiss her, his lips were gently blocked by Jean Mulan's fingertips. Shenlang was puzzled. "Baby, what's wrong? Don't you miss me?" Hearing this, Jean Mulan lowered her eyes to hide the shyness within, her voice as faint as a mosquito's buzzing. "It's not that I don't want to, it's just that you already tossed about with Ning Yan today, so let's forget it. We can do it tomorrow after you've rested well." At this point, she bit her vermilion lip lightly, swallowing the rest of her words back into her stomach. Her heart was ultimately still a bit awkward. She had come this time fully prepared to conceive a child in one go, only to encounter the matter of the princess climbing into his bed. But if they continued to have intercourse tonight, her husband's condition would certainly be greatly discounted, and it would not be worth the loss if the quality was affected. It must be known that her goal was to bear the most beautiful or handsome child for Shenlang. Seeing this, Shenlang instantly understood her concerns, immediately hugged her tightly, and a confident bad smile rose on his face. "Baby, you must believe in your husband's strength. Just watch my performance tonight. I definitely won't let you down." As the night grew deeper, waves of sounds of lovemaking echoed unabashedly in the backyard of the Marquis of Chongping's mansion, only gradually subsiding until the latter half of the night. Early the next morning, just as the sky was turning bright, Shenlang, who had labored all night, was sleeping soundly snuggled in Jean Mulan's arms when suddenly a noisy shouting came from outside the window. "Young Master Shen, eunuch Li Ji has an urgent matter and requests to see you." Hearing these words, Shenlang sat up abruptly, and beside him, Jean Mulan also propped herself up, rubbing her sleepy eyes and asking, "What happened outside?" Shenlang frowned slightly and shook his head. "I don't know, unless something sky-shattering happened in the palace. Li Ji absolutely wouldn't come to the door just as the sky turned bright. Baby, you sleep a bit longer. I'll go out and see what's going on." A moment later, Shenlang, who had just stepped out of the room, was met by Li Ji, who had a face full of anxiety. Shenlang asked, "Eunuch Li, coming so early, has something happened to one of the consorts in the palace?" Hearing this, Li Ji's eyes split with rage, and his voice trembled as he said, "Young Master Shen, please return to the palace with this servant quickly. It is His Majesty. Something has happened to His Majesty." Shenlang's face changed drastically upon hearing this. His Majesty has always been healthy. How could he suddenly suffer from an illness? Calming his mind, Shenlang forced himself to cool down, and then his brain began to spin rapidly. Currently, all the plans he was operating relied entirely on the sovereign's full support from behind. But if the sovereign really met with a mishap, wouldn't everything Shenlang had painstakingly managed turn into bubbles? At that time, he would only be able to take everyone and flee to Furious Tide City, and there would be no place for him to stand in the Yu Kingdom anymore. Thinking of this, Shenlang rushed forward and asked urgently, "What is His Majesty's condition now? Is it very serious?" Li Ji nodded heavily. "It is extremely critical. This servant knows His Majesty certainly wouldn't want the Crown Prince and the Third Prince to know of this matter, which is why I came to find you immediately. Right now, the only one who can save His Majesty is you. If His Majesty really has a mishap, I'm afraid the entire Yu Kingdom will fall apart." Shenlang's heart shook massively upon hearing this. Exactly what kind of malignant disease did the sovereign suddenly suffer from to make Li Ji panic to this extent? However, speaking of which, the struggle between the Crown Prince and the Third Prince had long reached a state of swords drawn and bows bent. For a long time, it was entirely due to the sovereign's pressure that the two sides hadn't torn their faces. But once the sovereign fell, this long-accumulated conflict would definitely erupt completely. At that time, it might not be just factional strife, but civil war. And currently, with Ning Zheng's strength, he had no ability to participate in the struggle at all, and would only be forced to give up. The sovereign absolutely must not have an accident now. At this time, Jean Mulan also dressed and ran out. Seeing the solemn expressions of the two, she quickly asked, "Husband, what happened?" Hearing Jean Mulan's voice, Shenlang hurriedly instructed her, "Baby, quickly go back to the room and get my medicine chest. I need to go to the palace with Eunuch Li." A moment later, Shenlang, having obtained the medicine chest, followed Li Ji and rushed towards the royal palace in a hurry. He recited silently in his heart, "Your Majesty, please hold on a little longer. You must persist until I arrive." Half an hour later, Shenlang and Li Ji finally arrived at Consort Zhong's palace after speeding all the way. As soon as they entered the door, they heard Consort Zhong's panicked and sorrowful crying coming from the inner chamber. Seeing this, Li Ji hurriedly stepped forward quickly to report, "Your ladyship, this old slave has brought young Master Shen Shen. Hearing Li Ji's voice, the crying stopped abruptly. Consort Zhong, who had already cried into a tearful person, turned her head abruptly. When she saw the figure at the door clearly, her accumulated emotions instantly burst, and she lost her voice in loud weeping again. Shen Lang, quickly save His Majesty. His Majesty has been staying in my room for the past few days. Last night, while we were sharing the clouds and rain, he suddenly collapsed on the couch and couldn't even speak. It's all because I was too greedy for pleasure. Shen Lang, I beg you, save him quickly. Listening to Consort Zhong's incoherent description, Shen Lang couldn't help but feel a burst of panic. He dared not delay any longer and immediately activated his X-ray vision, beginning to conduct a comprehensive scan and examination of Ning Yuanxian's body. He prayed secretly in his heart, please don't let it be a cerebral hemorrhage. It must be known that in this world, even basic surgical disinfection couldn't be achieved. Minor surgeries could barely be managed, but craniotomy would be tantamount to directly pronouncing a death sentence. A long while later, under Shen Lang's careful examination, he finally found the problem in Ning Yuanxian's brain. It was a thrombus, an acute cerebral infarction caused by a blood clot. This examination result made Shen Lang breathe a long sigh of relief. Fortunately, it wasn't a cerebral hemorrhage. This acute cerebral infarction still had a 6-hour golden rescue window. As long as the blood vessel could be unclogged in time, the sovereign could be saved. However, in this world where cerebral infarction was unheard of, this disease should have been incurable and hopeless. If he hadn't transmigrated here, the sovereign would have undoubtedly died this time. Beside him, seeing Shen Lang frowning silently, Consort Zhong was already as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. Say something. How is His Majesty? Can he still be saved? Hearing this series of questions, Shen Lang immediately came back to his senses and then comforted gently. Consort Zhong, please relax. I have an 80% certainty of curing him. It's just that you are restless right now, and staying here might disturb the diagnosis and treatment. Why don't you go to the side hall to rest and await good news? I won't go. Seeing Shen Lang wanted to chase her out, Consort Zhong hurriedly held Ning Yuanxian's hand and cried, I want to guard His Majesty. Shen Lang, just let me wait here. I promise not to make any sound, and absolutely won't affect your treatment. Shen Lang sighed upon hearing this and had to agree. Subsequently, he turned to look at Li Ji and said with a solemn expression, unically, His Majesty's brain blood vessels are blocked by a blood clot. I must clear it within 2 hours. Once this time is missed, even if His Majesty survives, he will be permanently paralyzed. Hearing these words, Li Ji was shocked. It was the first time he had heard that the brain could also be blocked. Although he was confused, he knew the situation was critical and immediately bowed and responded, Young Master Shen, rest assured, as long as His Majesty can be saved, the entire Imperial Hospital will cooperate fully, and the Imperial physicians are at your disposal. Although this disease could be cured by timely thrombolysis in modern society, the difficulty lay in the fact that in the world Shen Lang was in, there were no symptomatic drugs. Right now, if he rashly used golden bloodline cursed bugs to impact the blood clot, given Ning Yuanxian's physical condition, he would absolutely explode and die. At this moment, after thinking it over and over, Shen Lang finally decided on the only method. Use an extremely fine silver needle to pierce into the sovereign's skull, precisely locate the vascular blockage, and then use inner strength to shake open the blockage, thereby restoring blood flow. But the problem now was that the brain is too fragile, and the internal neural network is complicated. A slight carelessness would cause irreversible consequences, and this operation not only required inserting a 19-centimeter silver needle into the brain, but also required the silver needle to turn cleverly inside the skull, avoiding all sensitive and fragile neural areas. This operation was extremely difficult even for a martial arts expert. After careful consideration, he raised his head and informed Li Ji of his plan, asking at the end, unically, do you think Princess Ning Jia has the strength to do it? Li Ji shook his head upon hearing this. Her Highness the Senior Princess is certainly strong in martial arts, but according to your plan, young master, I'm afraid we must ask a Grandmaster level expert to take action. As soon as this was said, both of them fell silent. Just then, a sharp and husky voice came from behind the screen. I'll do it. As the voice fell, a tall and aged Grand Eunuch walked in slowly, and this person's identity was not that of an ordinary eunuch. He was exactly one of the 6 great Grandmasters of the Yu Kingdom, and also Li Ji's ancestor. Seeing his arrival, Li Ji seemed to see a pillar of support, his eyes lighting up as he shouted, Foster father, you came. Young Master Shen, my foster father Li Mu was precisely a Grandmaster level martial artist. Now His Majesty is saved. Shen Lang was shocked upon hearing this. He was that old eunuch who only existed in legends, the great Grandmaster who protected the sovereign in the dark like a shadow at all times. Seeing Shen Lang stunned, Li Mu spoke slowly, Young Master Shen, do you think I will do? Shen Lang came back to his senses and nodded immediately. Naturally you will do. Then the matter of administering the needle for His Majesty will be entrusted to you, ancestor. After speaking, Shen Lang bent down and began to draw a schematic diagram for Li Mu, afraid that the other party would not understand properly. He even marked the details of blood vessel distribution, the direction and flow of the silver needle after insertion, and even the measure of force that needed to be precisely controlled during the needle application clearly on the diagram. A long while later, Li Mu, who had finished listening to the explanation, nodded, picked up a silver needle needle thinner than a hair, and said, with such a soft and thin needle, ordinary martial artists, let alone controlling the direction, might not even be able to pierce the skull. However, I can give it a try. Hearing these words, Shenlang immediately ordered someone to bring a pig skull for him to test his hand. He saw Li Mu utilizing inner strength, his wrist vibrating slightly, and the silver needle pierced into the skull like a stream of light, actually penetrating it with ease. But a moment later, Li Mu looked at the silver needle in his hand, his expression becoming more solemn as he said, "Human skulls and pig skulls are ultimately different. Next, I still need to use my own to try." As soon as these words came out, Shenlang was instantly shocked into a heart skip. Try on himself? Before he could react, with a soft poof sound, Li Mu actually pierced the silver needle through his own skull. Seeing this scene, Shenlang's face changed drastically, truly worthy of being a great grandmaster to be so ruthless to himself to this extent. However, this was not the end. Li Mu, who pulled out the silver needle a moment later, turned to Li Ji and said, "Next, you will do the test. I need to use this to figure out the precise scale of inner strength release." Watching Li Ji's unresisting, naturally cooperative movements, Shenlang already admired the loyalty of these two people to the ground in his heart. Immediately, he also hurriedly activated his X-ray vision and began to cooperate with Li Mu to administer the needle. And this time, under Shenlang's direction, Li Mu ran inner strength at his fingertips, continuously controlling the silver needle to go deep into Li Ji's brain. He had to find the limit of inner strength that human blood vessels could withstand. Suddenly, Li Ji's face changed drastically. A muffled groan came from his throat, but his body dared not move a bit. Shenlang's heart tightened instantly, and looking closely, it turned out that Li Mu didn't hold back his strength for a moment, and the silver needle almost pierced the blood vessels in Li Ji's skull. Immediately, Shenlang checked him carefully, and after confirming that Li Ji's brain had not suffered serious damage, he breathed a sigh of relief and looked up, saying, "Ancestor, that's about enough. If you continue, eunuch Li Ji's blood vessels won't be able to bear it." Li Mu nodded upon hearing this, withdrew the needle and stood up, saying, "Good, I have the numbers in my heart. We can start." As the voice fell, Li Ji couldn't hold on anymore and fell down. Once everything was ready, under Shenlang's guidance, Li Mu held the silver needle and began to officially administer the needle to the sovereign. He held his breath and concentrated. His wrist sank suddenly, and he carefully pierced the needle precisely into the skull. And Shenlang activated his X-ray vision, his gaze locked deadly on the direction of the silver needle, not daring to relax in the slightest. When the silver needle touched the blood clot blockage, Li Mu, following Shenlang's instructions, urged his inner strength and exerted force suddenly. This force seemed gentle, but in reality, it was condensed like wind, exactly the mystery of 1,000 pounds of force taking only an ounce. The blocked blood clot was flushed open in an instant, and the blood vessel was unblocked again. Seeing this, Shenlang's heart shook, suppressing his wild joy and secretly shouting, "Success." Then he let out a long sigh of relief and sat back in the chair. At this time, seeing Li Mu pull out the silver needle, Consort Zhong hurriedly stepped forward quickly, asking with a voice trembling with difficulty to conceal, "Shenlang, how is His Majesty's condition? When can he wake up?" Shenlang comforted gently, "Your ladyship, relax. Everything went very smoothly. You can go in and take a look." Hearing this, Consort Zhong could no longer care about anything else, stumbling to the side of the dragon couch. Looking at the pale sovereign on the couch, her tears fell instantly again. "This concubine will never be angry with you again. I will listen to your words in the future. Please wake up quickly." Hearing Consort Zhong's sorrowful call, Ning Yuanxian's eyelashes trembled slightly, and a long while later finally slowly opened his eyes. Only his consciousness was still chaotic and not yet completely awake. Seeing this, Shenlang hurriedly stepped forward and instructed, "Your ladyship, don't panic. You only need to massage His Majesty's limbs and torso more to help him recover his nerve functions." Soon, under Shenlang's guidance of massage and kneading, Ning Yuanxian suddenly exhaled a long breath of turbid air. His scattered eyes gradually focused, and then his chaotic mind finally cleared up completely. At this moment, Ning Yuanxian slowly turned his head to look at Shenlang. The moment their eyes met, in those tired eyes, there was both the rejoicing of surviving a disaster and the emotion condensed from 1,000 words. Ning Yuanxian looked at Shenlang and sighed, "Little bastard, I really owe you a life this time. I'm afraid this favor cannot be paid off in this lifetime." Hearing this, a ruffian smile instantly rose on Shenlang's face. "Your Majesty, you are too polite. Princess Ningyan and I have already slept together, so saving you is what I should do." Ning Yuanxian's eyelids jumped upon hearing this, and he couldn't help cursing secretly in his heart, "Stinky brat, if it weren't for you saving my life, I really want to climb up and beat you up." After the two bantered, the smile on Ning Yuanxian's face suddenly converged, and he asked abruptly in a deep voice, "Shenlang, did someone poison me?" Hearing the question, Shenlang instantly put away his playful expression and looked solemn. He knew clearly that if he bluntly said the sovereign was poisoned, then the first one to be suspected would be Consort Zhong. After all, the sovereign had a sudden attack in her bed, and once Consort Zhong was suspected, the third prince would also inevitably be implicated, and the entire Zhong family would be completely finished. Silent for a long time, Shenlang spoke slowly, "Your Majesty, no one poisoned you. This acute illness was caused by your own physical reasons." Ning Yuanxian breathed a long sigh of relief upon hearing this. In fact, deep in his heart, he would rather his his own body had problems than have the closest people harm him. He looked at Shenlang doubtfully and continued to ask, my body has always been carefully conditioned by imperial physicians and has always been healthy. How could I suddenly suffer from a malignant disease? Could it be that this group of quack doctors has been lying to me? Hearing this, Shenlang shook his head and instead asked, Your Majesty, have you had trembling hands frequently recently? Especially when resting still. They tremble involuntarily, but once you pick up something, it's fine instead. Ning Yuanxian nodded. Since last year I've had this symptom. It's just not serious, so I didn't take it to heart. Shenlang frowned even tighter upon hearing this, and asked again, Then do you feel times when your limbs are stiff? When waking up in the morning, always feel stiff all over, need to ease for a while to stretch, and sleep has also become much worse. Always hard to sleep peacefully at night. Seeing Shenlang looking so solemn, Ning Yuanxian also couldn't help but get nervous, thought carefully for a moment and said in a deep voice, Previously no, just recently, indeed a bit not good. Stinky brat, you don't need to have concerns. Just say whatever straight, I can still bear it. Shenlang sighed, then bowed and said, Your Majesty, if my diagnosis is correct, you are afraid to have contracted an extremely rare disease, movement disorder disease, known in medicine as Parkinson's syndrome. Speaking to this point, Shenlang paused, considered his wording, and continued, This disease, even I can only alleviate your symptoms and delay the progression of the illness, but cannot cure it completely. Hearing these words, Ning Yuanxian took a deep breath, suppressing his emotions and asking with a trembling voice, Then how many years can I still live? Your Majesty, rest assured. Shenlang hurriedly comforted, This disease is not a terminal illness. It will not directly endanger life. Under my careful care in the future, it is not a problem for you to live another 10 or 20 years. It's just, he changed the subject, adding a few points of solemnity to his tone. Later, as the illness progresses day by day, your limb tremors will become more and more obvious. Perhaps even walking will become difficult, and at that time, I'm afraid you can only rely on a wheelchair for transport. Shenlang's words were no less than a muffled thunder, smashing hard on Sovereign Ning Yuanxian's heart. Immediately he slowed down, pretending to be calm and asked, How long can I still walk normally? Hearing this question, Shenlang fell into a long silence. A long while later he spoke, At most, you can only hold on for 7 to 8 years. His short sentence of answer instantly made the whole room fall into dead silence. At this moment, Ning Yuanxian gritted his teeth tightly, clenched his hands into fists, his whole body trembling uncontrollably, but ultimately failed to suppress the surging grief and lost his voice in weeping. You know, as a monarch, one cannot show a weak posture. Otherwise, the subjects will lose awe, and the surrounding enemies will also reveal their fangs to us. So Shenlang, his gaze suddenly became sharp. Before I fall completely, the struggle for the succession must have a result. Shenlang was stunned upon hearing this. He didn't expect the sovereign's illness to actually accelerate the progress of the succession struggle. But now Ning Zhang's wings were not yet full and his foundation was shallow. This situation was extremely disadvantageous to him. Thinking for a moment, Shenlang suddenly bowed and said, Your Majesty, can you listen to a word from me? Ning Yuanxian nodded, signaling him to continue. Shenlang said seriously, Your Majesty, from now on you must stay in bed for at least half a month and not attend court. At that time, the court situation will inevitably be turbulent, and the struggle for succession between the crown prince and the third prince will instantly become fierce. More crucially, the war situation in the southern Ouyang kingdom and the Chu kingdom. Once they get the news of your Majesty's ill health, the external environment of Mayu kingdom will definitely become dangerous immediately. Especially the Chu kingdom. They will absolutely not let go of this opportunity to take advantage of the void and bite us hard. And in the current situation, it is completely impossible to solve the dispute between the Yu and Chu countries through negotiation, unless we compromise and concede. But doing so will only make the king of Chu push his luck even more, and there might even be the absurd situation where Mayu kingdom clearly won the war but has to sign a humiliating treaty forfeiting sovereignty. So your Majesty, since negotiation can no longer solve the problem, then why not follow my previous proposal and directly hold a border hunt where the winner takes all the land and demands indemnity. And 4 months later, your body has recovered, and when you appear in high spirits in front of everyone, using 2,000 new recruits to defeat the Chu kingdom's elite army in one fell swoop, your prestige will surely climb to the peak again, completely offsetting the negative impact brought by this illness. And at that time, whether domestic subjects or foreign powerful enemies, they will all feel awe towards you again. Listening to Shenlang's proposal, Ning Yuanxian fell into contemplation. To defeat the Chu kingdom's 5,000 elite troops with 2,000 new troops, without needing 100,000 great troops, without needing to spend astronomical military expenses, if it can really be achieved, this will undoubtedly be a shocking achievement. As the ruler of a country, such temptation is indeed irresistible. After pondering for a moment, he raised his eyes to look at Shenlang and asked cautiously, If we lose, what then? Shenlang coughed lightly, looking calm but with unquestionable certainty. Currently, people in the world all believe we will definitely lose, but I can guarantee to your Majesty here, this battle will definitely be won. If I must say what happens if lost, I will take His Highness Ning Zheng and his subordinates, flee overseas, retreat to Furious Tide City, and completely withdraw from the struggle for succession from then on, never stepping into the capital again. again. Speaking to this point, Shenlang suddenly changed the subject, a gleam of cunning flashing in his eyes. If I win, do you have a reward? Hearing the question, alarm bells rang in Ning Yuanxian's heart instantly. The stinky brat is indeed digging a pit for me again. What do you want again? Shenlang grinned, revealing a somewhat thieving appearance and said, Your Majesty, if this battle is won, I graciously request you to formally give His Highness Ningjing a chance to seize the succession, appoint him as the Tianhua commander, and allow him to expand the army by 5,000. Hearing Shenlang's request, Ning Yuanxian understood instantly. This Tianhua commander controls the city defense army of the entire capital, with extremely prominent power, and the current Tianhua commander is a confidant of Crown Prince Ning Yi. This person had repeatedly provoked and offended Shenlang before. Now Shenlang wants to seize this position, presumably firstly for personal revenge, and secondly to draw fuel from under the cauldron to weaken the Crown Prince's power. And for Ning Zheng, this can completely be called soaring into the sky, equivalent to him, Ning Yuanxian, announcing to the world that Ning Zheng, this prince who has always been ignored, has formally obtained the qualification to seize the succession. However, can Shenlang really win? Once the Yu and Chu countries sign the Border Hun agreement, the Chu kingdom will definitely dispatch the most elite and powerful army, and Shenlang's 2,000 new recruits just established under his command, wanting to defeat the Chu kingdom's brave and battle-hardened elite troops. This is undoubtedly a fantasy. However, Ning Yuanxian thought again. The big boasts this kid made to him have all been realized one by one. He just saved his life from the gates of hell. This ability and loyalty cannot be underestimated. Still not betting? Thinking over and over, a trace of decisiveness flashed in Ning Yuanxian's eyes, and he said seriously, Shenlang, I can't trust Ning Zheng, but I believe in your strength. If this battle is won, I will grant your request, formally appoint Ning Zheng as the Tianhua commander, and allow him to expand the army by 5,000. But if lost, you immediately take Ning Zheng and your people far away overseas, go as far as possible, never to return. Now my time is not much. Once I really fall, I can no longer protect you. Ning Yi and Ning Qi hate you to the bone. At that time, they will absolutely not let you off. Hearing that Ning Yuanxian was still thinking for him at this critical juncture, Shenlang was moved in his heart, but a confident smile rose on his face. He extended his hand, looking at Ning Yuanxian with burning eyes. Your Majesty, please rest assured, in this battle, I, Shenlang, will definitely create a miracle that shocks the past and present for you, for the entire Yu kingdom. Let the Chu kingdom's elites crumble into the sand. Let the people of the world know that my Yu kingdom cannot be bullied, and the monarch cannot be humiliated. After settling the sovereign, Shenlang, whose heart was tied to Jean Mulan, rushed back home without stopping. Unexpectedly, just as he pushed open the mansion door, a familiar figure came into view. Shenlang immediately exclaimed in joy, Brother Yun. That person turned to respond. This person was Shenlang's sworn brother, Imperial Ambassador Yun Mengzi. In order to let Ning Yan be with Shenlang smoothly, he specially returned to the Flame capital personally, asking people everywhere to mediate with Prince Lian, but unexpectedly suffered cold eyes and evasions, and ultimately failed to get his wish. At this moment, Yun Mengzi mocked himself with a face full of shame. Brother Lang, your foolish brother is really useless, having worked hard running around for several months. In the end, it was not as effective as a letter from Ning Han. Shenlang shook his head. Brother Yun need not blame yourself. Your intention is already engraved in my heart. Running around outside these few months, you must have suffered a lot of grievances. Yun Mengzi sighed lightly upon hearing this, then as if remembering something, suddenly smiled. Right, Brother Lang, returning this time, I brought back news you might be interested in. Qiu Yaoer has established a kingdom overseas. Shenlang was shocked upon hearing this. Established a kingdom? Qiu Yaoer? Wasn't her dream to explore the unknown world? Why would she suddenly build a kingdom overseas? Yun Mengzi explained, seeing his surprise. Brother Lang, you should also know the rules of the sea. Many trade fleets are no different from pirates at sea. This female devil led a group of pirates sailing east, originally to explore unknown lands, but unexpectedly on the way, she didn't provoke others, but encountered a few foreign pirate trade fleets who didn't know the height of the sky and the depth of the earth. Those greedy guys saw her fleet was small and wanted to swallow it, and as a result, they ran out of luck. She was like a locust passing through, destroying countless city-states, truly invincible and ever victorious. Now the surviving city lords have mostly fled to the Flame capital, currently begging the Flame Emperor to send troops to exterminate her. Hearing this, Shenlang couldn't help muttering in his heart, this style of acting doesn't seem like something Qiu Yaoer would do. Doesn't she always pride herself on not leaving any survivors for enemies? As if seeing through his thoughts, Yun Mengzi continued, it is said that after a storm at sea, she disappeared for 2 months. At that time, everyone thought she was buried at the bottom of the sea, but just when the fleet under her command was on the verge of collapse, she suddenly appeared again, and her strength became even more terrifying, so strong it was simply hair-raising. And it was also from that time on, although she still slaughtered countless cities, she also saved more oppressed slaves, and subsequently led these people to establish a country. Shenlang couldn't help being stunned. Disappeared for 2 months? Counting the time from learning that this woman was pregnant, almost a year has passed. Could it be that during that time she went to give birth? Thinking of this, he looked at Yun Mengzi and asked, Brother Yun, have you heard news of her giving birth to a child? Yun Mengzi Mengzi shook his head. This I haven't, but she now has a peculiar title, the queen pregnant with the devil. As soon as these words came out, Shenlang was utterly speechless. So this Cho Yaoer was fighting and killing with a pregnant belly? Then the baby in her belly, wouldn't it treat the wailing of these enemies as prenatal education? Seeing his expression, Mengzi couldn't help teasing. My brother, hearing that this woman is so heaven-defying and still carrying your flesh and blood in her belly, I wonder what thoughts you have. Shenlang shrugged his shoulders and said calmly, no special feeling. Her actions originally have nothing to do with me. Mengzi couldn't help smacking his lips upon hearing this, lamenting, Brother Lang, you don't know. When I heard these glorious deeds of Cho Yaoer, I felt more and more that I was too incompetent. Shenlang smiled helplessly. Brother Yun need not be depressed. In front of such a heaven-defying woman, I'm afraid any man would feel ashamed of being inferior. Mengzi nodded in agreement. Very true. I used to think that Ning Han and Cho Yaoer belonged to the same level of figures, but now it seems Cho Yaoer is far more heaven-defying than Ning Han. As a princess, Ning Han has the power of Sky's End Sea Pavilion behind her, while everything Cho Yaoer possesses relies entirely on her own hard work. Hearing Ning Han's name, Shenlang couldn't help spitting. That bitch Ning Han, is she worthy of being mentioned in the same breath as Cho Yaoer? Seeing Shenlang's attitude, Mengzi suddenly asked, Brother Lang, could it be that the news of you offending Ning Han a while ago is true? Shenlang was stunned. I didn't expect Brother Yun to know about this matter even in the Flame Capital. Mengzi shook his head. Brother Lang, you don't know. The Flame Capital is the center of the Eastern world. Among the high levels, there are almost no secrets. Whatever happens, it will spread throughout the city within a few days. But Brother Lang, speaking to this point, Mengzi suddenly leaned closer, hooked Shenlang's neck, and looked solemn. The power of Sky's End Sea Pavilion behind Ning Han is far more huge than you imagine. Shenlang smiled disdainfully. Would they specifically retaliate against a nameless pawn like me for Ning Han? Mengzi shook his head. That they won't. But Sky's End Sea Pavilion's cold attitude towards you is enough to be fatal, because countless forces in the world are trying every means to please Sky's End Sea Pavilion, eager to get the Pavilion Master's recognition. Now that they plainly dislike you, those forces wanting to cling to Sky's End Sea Pavilion will naturally become enemies with you in disguise. So Brother Lang, I'm very sorry. Your brother is truly powerless. Hearing this, Shenlang couldn't help cursing again. Ning Han, this bitch is really a disaster. But since Sky's End Sea Pavilion is unkind, there's no need for me to force myself closer. At worst, in the future, I, Shenlang, will draw a clear line with Sky's End Sea Pavilion. That evening, before the sky was completely dark, Jean Mulan pressed Shenlang onto the bed early and then entangled herself charmingly on his body. This night, carrying the reluctance of separation and the obsession of wanting to nurture offspring, she demanded warmth and comfort from Shenlang again and again. At dawn the next day, Jean Mulan was already standing in front of the mansion gate, ready to set off. At this moment, she reached out and gently pinched Shenlang's cheek, instructing with eyes full of reluctance, Husband, you now have me and Binger by your side, and now Princess Ningyan is added. In the future, you are absolutely not allowed to provoke those dubious women outside anymore. Remember? Seeing her like this, Shenlang hurriedly held her hand and comforted, Baby, you have to believe in your husband's character. After you leave, I will definitely keep myself pure for you, and will absolutely not let other women touch me half a bit. Hearing Shenlang's promise, Shen 13 aside couldn't help rolling a big white eye in his heart. His master's charm had always been unstoppable. I'm afraid even ghosts wouldn't believe this vow. Jean Mulan naturally also knew that Shenlang's words were mostly to coax her happy, but she knew deeply that she had a heavy responsibility and had to set off immediately. Helplessly, she leaned down and imprinted a gentle kiss on Shenlang's cheek, then turned resolutely and mounted the horse. After tightening the reins, she turned back to look at Shenlang and instructed him again, before reluctantly turning the horse's head and embarking on the journey back to mythical Turtle City. After Jean Mulan left, days passed in a flash. Soon, the news of Sovereign Ning Yuanxian falling ill and not attending court for many consecutive days spread through the entire capital like wings. The severe illness of a ruler of a country has always been the fuse for court turmoil. For a time, various hidden forces began to stir. Someone even secretly found out that on the night the sovereign fell ill, Shenlang was the first to enter the palace for emergency aid. Many people came to the door with various thoughts, wanting to inquire about the sovereign's true condition from Shenlang, but unexpectedly were blocked outside the door by the female generals, failing to even enter the main gate. But paper ultimately cannot wrap fire. Before long, an explosive piece of news spread quietly. The reason why Ning Yuanxian fell ill was entirely because he had been mixing with consort Zhong for days, and finally indulged excessively and collapsed on the bed, suffering a sudden stroke during sex. As soon as the news came out, people's private discussions arose everywhere. Usually seeing the sovereign so upright and majestic, they didn't expect him to be a fatuous ruler greedy for female charms, actually being so crazy in bed matters. He really lost all the face of the Yu kingdom. While rumors spread, a series of political reactions followed one after another. First, the blind date between the son of Prince Wu of the Great Flame Empire and Zhong Shishir broke up unhappily. Then Zhu Lin's large army of the southern Ouyang kingdom, as well as the army commanded by Zhong Yao, all shrank their battle lines one after another, withdrawing withdrawing to their original stations, obviously avoiding disaster. And on the Chu Kingdom's side, seeing the Yu Kingdom's court becoming so chaotic, they acted just as Shenlang had predicted, starting to become incomparably arrogant. At the negotiation table on the border of the two countries, the Chu envoys even began to ask for an exorbitant price, claiming that not only would they not return the captured fortresses, but they also wanted the Yu Kingdom to compensate 500,000 gold coins for war losses. Lying on the bed, Ning Yuanxian, although already prepared in his heart to be looted by the Chu Kingdom while the house was on fire, was still furious at the Chu King's shameless behavior. Just when no one in the court dared to take this hot potato, Shenlang stood up again, volunteering to the sovereign in the name of the fifth prince Ning Zheng, claiming willingness to share the sovereign's worries, thereby taking over the mess of negotiating with the Chu envoys. Unsurprisingly, their move caused quite a stir in the capital again. Commoners and officials were discussing privately, feeling that the negotiations between Yu and Chu were long hopeless. When negotiations were smooth before, Yu, Ning Zheng, didn't come. Now that it's in a deadlock, Yu rushed to take it. Furthermore, the sovereign hated this fifth prince so much before, but now decreed him to negotiate. Clearly, he wants Ning Zheng to be the scapegoat. And after Ning Zheng accepted the negotiation decree, even more outrageous things happened. All members of the Yu Kingdom mission, whether from the Ministry of Rights or the Office of Reception, 15 diplomatic special envoys, all withdrew from the negotiation on the grounds of sudden illness, resulting in the start of a new round of negotiations where on the Yu Kingdom side, only Shenlang and Ning Zheng were left, facing the 12 special envoys of the Chu Kingdom in lonely confrontation. At this moment, Wang Huili, the minister of the Chu Kingdom's Office of Reception, sat in the main seat of the negotiation table, glancing at Ning Zheng opposite from the corner of his eye while leisurely drinking tea, his eyes full of contempt and disdain. They say the fifth prince of Yu, Ning Zheng, is a waste. Seeing him today, indeed the reputation is well deserved. Didn't expect that in order to claim credit before the king of Yu, he actually dared to face our 12 special envoys alone at this time. What is this if not seeking his own death? Just as Wang Huili was mocking secretly, Shenlang suddenly spoke with a smile. Honorable envoy, I wonder what official position you hold in the Chu Kingdom. Since everyone is here, why don't we start the formal negotiation right now? Hearing this, Wang Huili glanced at Shenlang contemptuously, his tone indifferent. Is your Yu Kingdom truly out of people to actually send a wet behind the ears child to negotiate? What official position do you hold to be worthy of talking to this official? Shenlang smiled faintly upon hearing this, replying neither humbly nor arrogantly, I am Shenlang, currently serving as the chief clerk of the Marquis of Chongping's mansion. After listening to Shenlang introduce himself, Wang Huili immediately said with a face full of disgust, Chief clerk, this official is the minister of the Chu Kingdom's Office of Reception, a proper senior third-grade high official. Your Yu Kingdom is so disrespectful, actually sending a tiny sixth-grade chief clerk to negotiate. Prince Ning Zheng, please send an official of equal rank to receive according to diplomatic etiquette. Otherwise, this official will refuse to open his mouth to discuss anything. Hearing this, Ning Zheng, who was originally introverted and inarticulate, suppressed the anger in his heart and stammered, then let this marquis personally talk with the noble mission. As soon as these words came out, Wang Huili couldn't help laughing out loud, then deliberately imitated his tone saying, sure, you speak slowly, I am not in a hurry. The other party's sarcastic words instantly made Ning Zheng's face flush red with anger, his hands clenching his fists tightly, but he didn't know how to refute. At this time, Wang Huili put away his joking expression, his tone becoming increasingly arrogant as he said, Prince Ning Zheng, we need not waste each other's time. The responsibility for this border conflict lies entirely in your side actively provoking the war, causing my Chu Kingdom to suffer a shameful defeat. My king's ultimatum to the king of Yu will be the last one. As the party at fault in this border war, the king of Yu must publicly apologize to the Chu Kingdom and announce it to the world. When studying ancient classics and maps, my king discovered that as early as 130 years ago, the sovereignty of the 23 fortresses including Anning Fortress belonged to my Chu Kingdom. So now my army fought bloody battles and occupied these 23 castles, merely reclaiming lost territory. So where does the talk of returning come from? Of course, the land around these castles cannot be ceded either. They are the sacred and inviolable territory of my Chu Kingdom. The Yu Kingdom initiated this border war without reason, bringing huge personnel and property losses to my country, so the Yu Kingdom must compensate my country 500,000 gold coins. Right now, your Yu Kingdom has only two choices, either sign the contract, or we meet on the battlefield. Listening to Wang Huili's shameless request, Shenlang was instantly angered into laughter. This Chu King's ability to invert black and white is truly breathtaking. Clearly, this border war between Chu and Yu was completely provoked by the Chu Kingdom first, and they were also the ones who actively crossed the border to start the war. Now, knowing the news of the sovereign's serious illness, they actually pushed all the blame onto the Yu Kingdom's head. Very good. Wang Huili flew into a rage out of humiliation, pointing at Shenlang and shouting sternly, you, a mere tiny 6th grade sesame official, are also worthy to comment here? Is there a place for you to speak here? Prince Ning Zheng, either you chase this person out now, or we terminate the negotiation immediately and meet on the battlefield later. Seeing Wang Huili's exasperated appearance, then slowly raised his hand and clapped twice slightly. In an instant, the 10 Lan brothers, wearing tattered beggar clothes, walked in swaggering. Seeing this, the Chu Kingdom mission instantly fell into chaos, at a loss. Catching a glimpse of those sturdy beggars holding weapons behind him, Wang Huili was scared until his legs went soft. He suppressed his fear and asked with a trembling voice, "Who are you people? This is the sacred negotiation site between two countries. How did you get in?" However, without waiting for a response, the 10 Lan brothers had already swung their clubs, carrying out a loving care and education on the Chu envoys. For a time, shrill screams resounded through the entire Office of Reception's council hall. At this moment, while being beaten into running like a rat, Wang Huili didn't forget to grit his teeth and shout, "Your Yu Kingdom is simply bullying people too much. Shenlang, it's you, isn't it? Quickly make them stop." Hearing this, the corner of Shenlang's mouth hooked up a playful sneer, deliberately putting on a panicked appearance and shouting, "How did you beggars get in? So bold, actually daring to commit violence in the Office of Reception. Get out quickly." After speaking, he rushed towards the opposite side, shouting while running, "Stop quickly. They are the Chu Kingdom mission. You are going to cause a huge disaster. Lord Wang, hold on. I'm coming to save you right now." The next second, Shenlang, who had just rushed close, took advantage of the chaos to raise his foot and kicked fiercely at Wang Huili's crotch. This kick to end descendants immediately made Wang Huili let out a heart-rending scream. Looking at Wang Huili clutching his crotch and rolling on the ground in pain, Shenlang pretended to ask with concern, "Lord Wang, are you okay? I'll go call people right now. You must hold on." As the voice fell, the moment he turned around, he pretended to slip again and then kicked Wang Huili in the face. Only a crisp crack was heard, and two bloody front teeth flew out in response. The moment he fell, Wang Huili was in both pain and hatred, cursing indistinctly in his mouth. "Shenlang, you are truly a beast." Hearing this, Shenlang looked down at him from above, a contemptuous sneer coming from his throat, allowing the 10 Lan brothers to continue beating the mission until 5 minutes later, when he unhurriedly shouted towards the door, "Someone come quickly. Someone is committing violence and causing chaos here." Hearing Shenlang shout, the 10 Lan brothers finally stopped. Lan 10 pointed his stick at Wang Huili, who was paralyzed on the ground, and viciously laid down harsh words. "Old mixed hair, don't think calling people gives you reason. You guys had fun at Spring Fragrance Brothel and reneged on the bill. Even if we go to the magistrate, we are in the right. Listen well, next time you dare to whore for free at our Spring Fragrance Brothel, we'll beat you every time we see you." After speaking, they turned and left the negotiation room. Shenlang pretended to be in shock at this time, stepping forward to help up Wang Huili, who was covered in injuries. "Lord Wang, are you alright? Please rest assured, regarding this matter, I will definitely arrest the culprits and give the Chu Kingdom an explanation." However, changing the subject, he couldn't help sneering, "Lord Wang, I also have to say a few words to you. Going to that kind of place to seek pleasure, how can you not pay? Gambling debts might be glossed over, but whoring fees absolutely cannot be owed. Tell me, exactly how much fee do you owe? How about I advance it for you?" Listening to Shenlang mentioning owed whoring fees one mouthful after another, Wang Huili was about to explode with anger, but helpless that his mouth was really too painful to open. He could only forcefully swallow this bad breath. Truly a mute eating yellow lotus. Having bitterness he couldn't speak. Half an hour later, after simple treatment by the Yu Kingdom's imperial physicians, the Chu Kingdom mission, all bruised and swollen, sat back at the negotiation table again. At this moment, Shenlang had changed his posture, crossing his legs casually on the desk, his gaze sweeping over everyone's miserable state, and couldn't help chuckling. "Lord Wang, I am Shenlang, chief clerk of the Yu Kingdom's Marquis of Chongping's mansion. You have to remember it well this time." Hearing this, Wang Huili didn't answer in a muffled voice, just clutching his swollen and painful face, staring at him with eyes as if quenched with poison. "Shenlang, you beast, wait for me. Daring to beat a foreign mission, you are dead for sure. I will definitely complain to the king of you, to the king of Chu. Even if I have to go to the emperor of the Great Flame Empire, I will seek justice." Seeing him gritting his teeth like this, Shenlang couldn't help frowning, suddenly raising his voice and shouting sternly, "Did you all remember?" Seeing Shenlang about to clap his hands again, the dozen Chu envoys remembered the ruthlessness of the 10 Lan brothers just now, and were instantly scared out of their wits, hurriedly nodding in agreement repeatedly. Shenlang smiled with satisfaction upon seeing this. "That's right, I see the atmosphere now is much more harmonious than just now. Since that's the case, let's continue talking." Pausing, Shenlang stood up suddenly, his tone becoming sharp abruptly. "But everyone, I feel we have nothing left to talk about. Go back and tell the king of Chu, for months later, my Yu Kingdom will conduct a border hunt with your Chu Kingdom to resolve this dispute. At that time, my Yu Kingdom will dispatch 2,000 soldiers, and your Chu Kingdom can dispatch the most powerful 5,000 elite troops. We will fight a life and death decisive battle openly. The losing side, the monarch, must apologize in public, cede 20 miles of the borderline and 23 fortresses, and also compensate the other party 800,000 gold coins. How about it? Does your Chu Kingdom dare to accept the challenge? You, Shenlang, you actually dare to propose using 2,000 soldiers to battle my Chu Kingdom's 5,000 elite troops?" Upon hearing the solution to the conflict between the two countries proposed by Shenlang, Wang Huili was so shocked that his whole person bounced up from the chair. The Chu Kingdom's elite army fought and slaughtered all year round. Their combat power far exceeded the Yu Kingdom's army. absolutely not comparable to the troops temporarily raised by the Yu Kingdom. Is this kid Shenlang a spy planted here by my Chu Kingdom? How could he actively throw out such ridiculously disparate conditions? Is he afraid my Chu Kingdom won't win this duel? Wang Huili thought more and more that this matter revealed strangeness. After pondering for a moment, he slammed the table and stood up, saying, Prince Ning Zheng, diplomatic relations between two countries is a top priority. How can it be such a joke? However, before he could finish, he was interrupted by Ning Zheng. Lord Wang, this marquis is the plenipotentiary representative of the Yu Kingdom for this negotiation, and what Shenlang said not only represents my thoughts but also conveys His Majesty's will. As soon as these words came out, the Chu mission was shocked again. Everyone looked at each other, stunned into a daze by these outrageous conditions. Could it be that pies are really going to fall from the sky? The Chuiwa border hunt already had a disparity in combat power, and Shenlang actively fought with fewer against more. Isn't this completely delivering meat to the mouth? Even with eyes closed, it's a guaranteed win. At this time, even Wang Huili was shocked for a long while without reacting. What exactly is going on? A Prince Ningjing who has always been regarded as a waste, plus this Shenlang who acts perversely and ruthlessly. Could it be these two are setting some conspiracy trap for the Chu Kingdom? But he racked his brains and thought repeatedly, yet couldn't find half a flaw. A moment later, he simply suppressed all doubts and began to calculate in his heart. Who cares if there's any trick? Encountering these two fools now, and getting such an opportunity to establish a huge merit, this official absolutely cannot miss it. Must quickly let them settle this condition, to save them from regretting it when they react. Thinking to this point, a trace of eager glint flashed in Wang Huili's eyes, pointing at Ningjing and saying, Prince Ningjing, do you dare to sign the national credential with me on the spot to establish ironclad proof? Hearing this, Ningjing looked up at Shenlang. After receiving the other party's slight nod, he held his head high and chest out, his tone firm. What is there to dare? Very good. Wang Huili was overjoyed upon hearing this. The resentment from being beaten and the doubts in his heart were instantly suppressed by the greed for merit. He immediately turned his head and shouted sternly to the back, present paper, ink, brush, and inkstone. Draft the national credential immediately. A moment later, Wang Huili personally picked up the brush and wrote it out word for word according to the conditions proposed by Shenlang. Afterward, he checked it word by word repeatedly several times, and after confirming it was correct, he couldn't wait to signal the seal-holding special envoy to stamp the large seal. After Ningjing also stamped the Yu Kingdom seal, he immediately urged, Prince Ningjing, since both sides have reached an agreement, then we will return to the Chu Kingdom immediately, pass this national credential to my king for perusal, and finalize the exact date of the border hunt. After speaking, he turned and wanted to leave. Shenlang saw this and hurriedly stepped forward quickly to pretend to detain him. Lord Wang, don't rush to leave. You are still injured. The mastermind behind beating the special envoys has not yet been caught. If this matter is not investigated thoroughly and an explanation is not given to you and the king of Chu, what face do I, Shenlang, have to see His Majesty of my country? Hearing Shenlang shout, Wang Huili was so angry that the fire almost rushed through his chest, but thinking of the national credential in hand and the great merit on his body, he could only forcibly press down the anger in his heart, pretending to be magnanimous and saying coldly, this official is a big person who doesn't count the faults of small people. Let's shelve this matter for now, to be discussed later. That won't do. Shenlang continued to be relentless. Lord Wang, you can't take this beating for nothing. Stay a few more days. I will definitely give you a satisfactory answer. Wang Huili was anxious and angry seeing this, suddenly shook off his sleeve, gritted his teeth and said fiercely, no need, really no need. Those beggars acted for a reason. We have decided not to pursue this matter anymore. Shenlang pretended to be surprised. Why is this? Wang Huili had no choice but to bite the bullet and fabricate nonsense. Prince Ningjing, young Master Shen, this matter is indeed because someone in my mission acted improperly, failing to pay after seeking pleasure at Spring Fragrance Brothel. We accept this beating. His answer made Shenlang momentarily stunned, thinking secretly, this Wang Huili is ruthless enough. In order to return to the Chu Kingdom to report the news as soon as possible, he is willing to admit to the scandalous matter of the whoring without paying, which didn't exist. At this time, Wang Huili pretended to sigh guiltily. It's all because I wasn't strict in discipline, letting my subordinates cause such a scandal. Young Master Shen, since I have decided not to pursue it, then we will take our leave first. After speaking, he took the group of bruised and swollen envoys and walked hurriedly towards the door. Seeing this, Shenlang looked at their wretched backs and raised his voice to tease. Lord Wang, walk slowly. Next time you come to the Yu Kingdom, you must give me a chance to treat you to a meal, as an apology. These words entered Wang Huili's ears, making his chest tight with anger, but he could only quicken his pace and lead the people to snatch the door and exit. Half a while later, the convoy sped on the official road to the Chu Kingdom. At this moment, Wang Huili sat upright in the carriage, his heart full of the imminent glory and wealth. He had long thrown the pain of flesh and skin to the 9 heavens, but when passing through town of Westgard and crossing the defense zone of Zhong Yao's army, a trace of concern passed through his heart, worrying that he would be detained by the Yu army because of the conflict during the negotiation. However, what he saw along the way was that Zhong Yao's army was constantly shrinking its defense line, showing no intention of blocking their Chu Kingdom mission. Wang Huili couldn't help but suddenly realize, it It seems that the court turmoil caused by Ning Yuanxian's serious illness is far more severe than they expected. Zhong Yao's move is clearly unwilling to have a frontal conflict with the Chu kingdom. Obviously, the focus of the Zhong family has quietly shifted to supporting the third prince Ning Qi to seize the succession, and they simply have no time to attend to the border entanglement with the Chu kingdom. Heavens are really helping me. Afterward, traveling non-stop, after 3 days and 2 nights of rushing, Wang Huili finally presented the national credential to the king of Chu at the first moment. Looking at the national credential in his hand, the king of Chu was instantly delighted, shouting 3 times in a row, "Beloved Minister Wang, you have made a great contribution this time. Must reward." Aside from joy, a trace of contempt flashed in the king of Chu's eyes, thinking to himself, "Ning Yuanxian, oh Ning Yuanxian, you are so muddled after being bedridden with a serious illness. Actually sending Ning Zheng, that waste, to handle such a major event as negotiating with my Chu kingdom and setting such an absurd agreement. Although this may be your delaying tactic, worrying that my Chu kingdom will take advantage of your Yu kingdom's turmoil to send troops, and thus throwing out such ridiculous hunting conditions to stabilize the situation. But Ning Yuanxian, you really overthought it." Thinking of this, the corner of the king of Chu's mouth hooked up a deep and unfathomable sneer. This king originally didn't intend to send troops at this moment. Wait until noble Lord Jin unifies the entire San barbarian tribe and reclaims the southern Ouyang kingdom, completely defeating Zhulin's army. That will be the time for my Chu kingdom to truly send troops. Since you are playing this game with me, then this king will play with you, letting you outsmart yourself. Regardless of whether this national credential is bait or a delaying tactic, this king will definitely eat this benefit delivered to the mouth. The king of Chu had already calculated properly in his heart, wanting to borrow this border hunt to completely damage the Yu kingdom's national strength. However, he was completely unaware that he had long fallen into the trap set by Shenlang. After he stamped the Chu kingdom's seal with full confidence, he dispatched a new mission non-stop to the Yu kingdom again. And after this extremely absurd border hunt spread, the whole country boiled instantly. Countless memorials impeaching Shenlang and Ningjing flooded into the royal palace like snowflakes again. A group of imperial censors were even more agitated, kneeling outside sovereign Ning Yuanxian's sleeping palace shouting for orders. Shenlang and the fifth prince Ningjing humiliated the nation and forfeited sovereignty, colluding with the enemy country to sell the interests of Great Yu. Such traitors should be beheaded. And the sovereign, recuperating on the dragon couch, did not disappoint Shenlang, cooperating very well by dyeing all his hair white. At this time, his originally haggard face was full of rage, and he stated that the so-called border hunt was decided privately by Ningjing and Shenlang, and this contract simply didn't count. Immediately following, Ning Yuanxian issued a decree letting the imperial guard surround the entire Marquis of Changping's mansion, and let out word for Ningjing and Shenlang to await the Holy Will for disposal. But this move, in the hearts of everyone in the court in the wild, was already tacitly understood, thinking that this was clearly the sovereign's delaying tactic. Otherwise, even if Ningjing and Shenlang had guts as big as the sky, they couldn't have made the decision without authorization to create the absurd matter of 2,000 new troops battling against the Chu kingdom's 5,000 elite troops. Obviously, he wants these two people to take the blame for the Yu kingdom. When these voices of public opinion reached the Chu kingdom, the king of Chu was unhappy. In his view, although Ningjing is the recognized waste prince of the Yu kingdom, since he represented the Yu kingdom to negotiate, then the national credential he signed personally should naturally count. How can you, Ning Yuanxian, casually deny it with one sentence? In a rage, the king of Chu immediately ordered the dispatch of 100,000 troops to cross the border again, posing a posture of starting war at any time. The border situation between Chu and Yu instantly became tense again. Zhong Yao's army stationed at the border, under the layer-by-layer pressure of the Chu kingdom's 100,000 troops, could only send urgent reports to the Yu kingdom's capital again and again. Finally, under internal and external pressure, Ning Yuanxian had to relent and agreed to receive the vice minister of the Ministry of Rights dispatched by the Chu kingdom this time. At this moment, the atmosphere in the king of Yu's sleeping palace was solemn. Just as the vice minister of the Ministry of Rights of the Chu kingdom stepped into the room, he saw Ning Yuanxian sitting on the dragon couch with a head full of white hair. He couldn't help being stunned. The king of Yu is indeed seriously ill as rumored. Seeing his whole body trembling, appearing strenuous even to sit upright, "I'm afraid the oil is exhausted and the lamp is drying up. Life is not long." Thinking of this, the vice minister of the Ministry of Rights collected his mind, his tone becoming sonorous and forceful as he spoke bluntly. "Your Majesty, king of Yu, since your country has signed the national credential with our country, you must abide by the promise and execute according to the agreement. Otherwise, where's the dignity of your Yu kingdom?" Ning Yuanxian heard this, gasping for breath, deliberately putting on an appearance of being powerless. All this was done by Ningjing privately. It is not the intention of my Yu kingdom. However, seeing him struggling even to speak, the vice minister of the Ministry of Rights interrupted him directly. "Your Majesty, king of Yu, words cannot be spoken like this. Prince Ningjing acted under your decree, fully responsible for the negotiation matters with our country. His every word and deed naturally represent your will, represent the Yu kingdom's stance. Moreover, this national credential is not only held by Chu and Yu now. The great Flame Empire has also submitted a copy for record. How can it allow you to repent at will? As soon as these words came out, Ning Yuanxian couldn't help flying into a rage, panting and roaring, "Rebellious son! Ning Jing, this rebellious son! I should have recognized long ago that this rebellious son is an ominous thing. Li Ji, quickly go take people to throw Ning Jing into the clan affairs court prison. Guard him strictly." After roaring these few sentences, Ning Yuanxian leaned panting on the bed, rested for a long time, barely calmed his breath a little, and then turned to the vice minister of the Ministry of Rights and said, "I have already imprisoned the culprit and punished him. Your country should be satisfied now, right? The so-called border hunt is completely a farce directed and acted by Ning Jing himself. Please go back and tell the king of Chu. Absolutely do not take it seriously." The vice minister of the Ministry of Rights heard this and couldn't help sneering in his heart. "Ning Yuanxian, you really calculate well. You worried that during your bedridden illness, my Chu kingdom would take the opportunity to send troops to attack you, so you threw out this absurd border hunt as bait, vainly attempting to use this as a delaying tactic. Now that the scheme is exposed, you push Ning Jing out to take the blame? Your abacus is wrong. Is my Chu kingdom easy to deceive? Since you actively threw the meat out, how could my king let you have the chance to take it back?" Thinking to this point, the vice minister of the Ministry of Rights took out a letter directly from his bosom, presenting it respectfully. "Your Majesty, king of you, before departing, my king specially instructed me to bring a handwritten letter to you. Please read it personally, Your Majesty." Taking the letter, seeing only a few sentences on it, yet every word was like a knife. "Brother king of you, either hold the border hunt as agreed, or beacons will rise everywhere on the border. Hope you choose one." Such a naked war threat made Ning Yuanxian's face twitch uncontrollably upon seeing it. His hands shook even more severely, a breath failed to come up, and he almost passed out. At this time, he heard the vice minister of the Ministry of Rights speak provocatively. "Your Majesty, king of you, the current situation is clear. As long as you personally say no, I will leave the Yu kingdom immediately. Afterward, my Chu kingdom will completely close the door to negotiation. At that time, our two countries can only meet with weapons." As the voice fell, Ning Yuanxian instantly fell into a dilemma. Just as he was full of entanglement and didn't know how to choose, a hurried shouting suddenly came from outside the sleeping palace door. "Disaster! 800-mile urgent report from the front. The Chu kingdom's army crossed the border another 10 miles, and now they are at the city gates." Ning Yuanxian heard this, instantly anxious and angry, unable to resist, roaring sternly, "King of Chu, you are simply bullying people too much. Bullying people too much. Go back and tell the king of Chu. If he wants to fight, then fight. What fear do I have? At worst, I will lead the expedition personally again this time, and fight him to the death." However, before he finished roaring, because a breath didn't come up, he fell down again. The vice minister of the Ministry of Rights, watching coldly from the side, sneered even more in his heart. "Ning Yuanxian, are you still that high-spirited king of you from back then? A tiger falling on the flat plains is bullied by dogs. Having reached this state, you actually still hold on to put on airs and posture. Truly ridiculous and pathetic." It took a good while for Ning Yuanxian to gradually recover. At this moment, he raised his eyes with difficulty and instructed Li Ji beside him with a trembling voice, "Quickly go, bring that rebellious son Ning Jing to me." Half a while later, Ning Jing was escorted and knelt in front of the sovereign. Ning Yuanxian raised his trembling hand, pointed at him and scolded angrily, "Look at the good deed you've done. Since this absurd border hunt was proposed by you and Shenlang, then from now on, it will be fully handed over to you two to resolve. I will absolutely not dispatch a single soldier to help 2,000 new recruits against the Chu kingdom's 5,000 elite troops. Thanks to you and Shenlang for thinking of it. If this battle is lost, you two will apologize with death together." Ning Jing heard this and remained silent. Seeing this, the vice minister of the Ministry of Rights stepped forward and said, "Your Majesty, king of you, since you have made a decision, please stamp the seal on the national credential immediately to confirm. Our border hunt between Chu and you is set for 4 months later, which is the 3rd day of the 2nd month next year. I wonder what your Majesty thinks." Upon hearing this, Ning Yuanxian closed his eyes tiredly and weakly, responded, and then signaled Li Ji to present the national credential. At this moment, Ning Yuanxian's hands shook even more severely. When signing, he could almost not hold the pen steadily. It had to be said that his exquisite acting, if placed in modern times, should really be awarded an Oscar statuette. The monarch's seal was heavily stamped on the national credential. The Chu kingdom's vice minister of the Ministry of Rights looked at the bright red mark in front of him, suppressing the excitement in his heart, secretly rejoicing wildly. Finally done. My Chu kingdom is finally going to cut a big piece of flesh from the Yu kingdom. 23 fortresses, 800,000 gold coins indemnity. Just these alone can make the Yu kingdom unable to compete with my Chu kingdom for the position of southern hegemon for several years. However, amidst the noise of discussions filling the city, a scene that made everyone find inconceivable appeared again in the capital. Shenlang actually set up a stall for high-salary soldier recruitment in front of the mythical Turtle Gate again. A huge crimson banner hung high, written with eye-catching large characters, "Monthly salary 30 silver coins, once employed, 1 year's salary paid in a lump sum." His move instantly detonated the discussion of the whole city. Many people watched, finding it both ridiculous and amusing. Can recruit 2,000 special bloodline possessors? There are less than 4 months left until the border hunt. No way. way, Shenlang, you only start recruiting soldiers now? Could it be you really think you can still be as lucky as the last Imperial examination, recruiting 2,000 special bloodline possessors in one go? This kid is simply joking with our Kingdom's future national destiny. However, facing the surrounding rumors and slander, Shenlang remained indifferent, even starting to personally take the field to shout and promote recruitment, not affected by public opinion in the slightest. But in a flash, 3 days passed, and Shenlang's recruitment stall remained extremely cold, with no one asking. And those who came to watch the joke saw this and intensified their sarcastic remarks. Shenlang, this guy, really overrates himself. Those 5,000 elites of the Chu Kingdom are all brave warriors who have fought for years. Right now at this critical juncture, temporarily recruiting soldiers, who would think their life is too long to go to the border to send themselves to death with him. During this period, it wasn't that truly no one came to inquire. It was just that the people who came to consult didn't meet Master Lang's requirements and were driven away. Time flew, and it reached the 5th day of Shenlang setting up the recruitment stall. Just as the people of the whole city were still mocking him for indulging in wild fantasies and fruitless recruitment, he actually made a shocking move, ordering Wu Lai and a group of female generals, according to the list he drafted in advance, to start going directly to doors to grab people for the army. As soon as this happened, the capital was instantly in an uproar. Countless commoners were furious at this, accusing Shenlang of being absurd and tyrannical. But this anger didn't last long. When the people grabbed by the female generals appeared on the street, all onlookers were again shocked and dumbfounded. Not just sickly people, but all were mentally retarded low-energy people with sickly bodies. Once the news spread, this matter became the laughing stock of the countrymen again. Ridicule filled the streets and alleys. Could it be that Shenlang wants to smash the pot because it's cracked, preparing to catch all the low-energy people in the capital in one net, forming a brain-damaged army to perfunctorily deal with His Majesty? However, little did they know, these low-energy people who were useless in the eyes of others were rare treasures in Shenlang's heart, only because the blank bloodline possessors he was looking for all had a common feature: frail bodies and scattered gazes. However, although they looked dull in expression, they were actually not truly stupid, just extremely slow in reacting to the outside world. In his view, these people were more like autistic patients mentioned in modern society, not incurable. And precisely because of this, in this era where labor was fundamental, these people were a heavy burden for every family, tasteless to eat, yet a pity to discard. So, when Wu Lai and the others went to grab people, most families not only didn't resist but, after getting the salary promised by Shenlang, rejoiced secretly in their hearts, feeling they finally got rid of this burden. At this moment, in front of a household on a street corner, Wu Lai held a deed of sale, speaking in a deep voice to the woman in the courtyard whose face was full of joy. Since you took the salary, sign and fingerprint here. From now on, this son of your family has nothing to do with you anymore. Birth, aging, illness, and death are all the responsibility of the military camp. Hearing this, the woman held the heavy silver coins, smiling until her mouth almost curled to the sky. So much money, 180 silver coins. This was more than 10 times the normal soldier's pay. She didn't expect this foolish son could bring such a large fortune to her family. Thinking of this, she signed her name without hesitation. An ordinary family couldn't save this much money even if they lived frugally for 10 years. She could not only logically throw away this foolish son but also use this money to build a house and get a wife for her second son. The livelihood of the whole family for the rest of their lives was settled. How could she refuse such a good thing? Wu Lai continued to the second house, the third house, even for those on the list who had been abandoned in the deep mountains and old forests. She took her subordinates and found those pitiful low-energy people again. Just like this, after half a month of recruitment, more than 2,300 blank bloodline possessors were arranged into the Marquis of Chongping's mansion. Afterward, Shenlang didn't make strict demands on them as soldiers but first had people prepare rich food and brand new clothes, letting these people who had suffered bullying and endured hunger for years feel warmth for the first time. Subsequently, he patiently spent more than 10 days helping them condition their bodies and let Kui-chen teach them basic military camp rules and daily etiquette. And although this group of people looked silly, they could sense who was genuinely good to them, and they all tried very hard to cooperate with his commands. Kui-chen, who was originally worried that they would be hard to train, was soon shocked by their learning speed. In just 3 days, these more than 2,300 people mastered basic formation cooperation proficiently. The next day, Shenlang arranged more than 200 covered horse carriages, preparing to take these more than 2,000 people away from the capital to the northern park hunting ground for secret modification. As the news spread, countless commoners gathered on both sides of the carriage route to watch. When they saw clearly the soldiers on the carriages who still looked dull, drooling with foolish faces, they instantly erupted in a burst of crazy laughter and discussion. No way, no way. Did Shenlang really recruit so many retards in this month, preparing to go to the battlefield? And the parents of these people are really cruel enough. For that bit of salary, they actually sent their foolish sons to die. The blank bloodline possessors on the carriages, hearing the sky-filling ridicule from below, lowered their heads one by one, their hearts wrapped in thick inferiority and uneasiness. Although they were slow to react to the outside world, they could understand those sarcastic words. Everyone subconsciously shrank their bodies, wishing to curl up tightly together, hide themselves, and avoid those disdainful gazes. Inside the lead carriage, Shenlang lifted the curtain, glanced at the noisy and mocking crowd outside, and couldn't help sighing lightly. Prince Ningzheng, I really sympathize with you. In the future, even if you succeed in seizing the succession and ascend the throne, what you have to face every day is probably such a group of foolish idiots who don't understand reason and only know how to follow the trend and mock. Ningzheng heard this and shook his head helplessly. Don't laugh at them. These onlookers are just ignorant, and these people on the carriages are actually all pitiful people, disliked by family all year round, despised by the world, never having felt half a bit of warmth. Shenlang sneered, the corner of his mouth hooking up a cold smile. Pitiful people may have pathetic aspects, but being a fool without knowing it and wantonly mocking others is the most pathetic, isn't it? After speaking, he turned his head to look out the window again. The convoy would arrive at the Northern Park hunting ground soon. That place would be the starting point for the transformation of these blank bloodline possessors. At that time, once the modification was successful, what kind of combat power would they erupt with? He really couldn't wait to see it. Shenlang's convoy took more than 2,300 blank bloodline possessors towards the Northern Park hunting ground, preparing to conduct bloodline modification on them there. Just as the convoy entered the boundary of the hunting ground, they were intercepted by a well-equipped army. Seeing this, Kui-chen immediately stepped forward to negotiate. Everyone, I am Kui-chen, leader of 1,000 households of the Marquis of Chongping's mansion. Under His Majesty's orders, I lead the new army to station and train at the Northern Park hunting ground. Please make way and leave on your own. As the voice fell, a woman rode a tall horse and walked out slowly from the opposing army. This woman was none other than Zhong Miao, the adopted daughter of the Zhong family. She reined in her horse, staring at Kui-chen with unkind eyes, her tone carrying a few points of disdain and provocation. Why have I never heard that His Majesty bestowed the Northern Park hunting ground to you? Since our Zhong family's 2,000 elites have already stationed here, then this Northern Park hunting ground belongs to us. It's useless no matter who comes. Speaking to this point, Zhong Miao suddenly drew the sword at her waist. Cold light flashed, and the cavalry behind her responded in unison, their momentum becoming increasingly severe. Immediately she shouted sternly, "Generals, listen to the order. This place has now been designated as a military restricted zone. No one is allowed to approach half a step. Violators will be killed without mercy." At this time, hearing Zhong Miao's clamoring shout, Shenlang walked down from the carriage, and then said with a few points of mocking smile on his face, "So it's Zhong Miao. Where is your master, Zhong Shishir? Could it be that she was disfigured by me last time and has no face to see people, so she sent a dog like you to bark in front of me? You're looking for death." Zhong Miao was instantly enraged by Shenlang's words. She glared at him and was just about to flare up when a clear but hate-filled female voice suddenly came from behind her. "Shenlang, stop being presumptuous. I have been waiting for you here for a long time." Everyone looked towards the sound and saw Zhong Shishir wearing a tight outfit, walking out slowly from the rear of the army. At this moment, the scars on her face were gone, but her beautiful eyes were full of coldness. She stared deadly at Shenlang, every word quenched with anger. "Scum, listen well. Immediately take your people and get out of here right now. Otherwise, if you dare to cross the defense line half a step, wait to be exterminated by my army." Hearing this, Shenlang not only had no fear but chuckled aloud. "Not bad, Zhong Shishir. Your face actually healed so quickly. It seems you set up the defense line early, and even scouted that I only have more than 300 soldiers on my side who are armed and can go into battle, completely unable to confront your 2,000 troops. No wonder you are so confident." However, Zhong Shishir didn't bother to pick up his words, pointing directly at him and shouting sternly, "Shenlang, I won't engage in wordplay with you. Now I count down 5 numbers. If you still don't retreat with your people, then wait to be exterminated by me." Before she could shout 3, Shenlang suddenly raised his hand to interrupt her words, his eyes becoming sharp abruptly, his tone cold as he said, "Zhong Shishir, don't be too proud. Do you know you have already fallen into my trap? I advise you to take your army and leave quickly. Otherwise, I don't mind exterminating your entire army today, breaking another force of the Zhong family." As the voice fell, Zhong Miao behind her couldn't help laughing loudly, her laughter full of disdain and ridicule. "Just you, a pretty boy who relies on his face to eat, dare to alarm people here? What, falling into your trap? Just with your mere 300 armed soldiers, you dare to speak such big words in front of my Zhong family's 2,000 elites, simply laughing people to death." Shenlang heard this, the smile on his lips deepened a few points, but he ignored her completely. His gaze went straight past her, landing on the tense-looking Zhong Shishir. "Zhong Shishir, previously you wanted to let Consort Zhong take action to get rid of me, right? Only it's a pity that she is currently busy taking care of the sovereign in the palace, and has no time to attend to the grudge between you and me. So you settled for the second best, thinking of waiting for the rabbit by the tree at the Northern Park hunting ground, taking action personally to deal with me. The first batch of advanced troops you sent secretly infiltrated the Northern Park hunting ground 3 days ago to set up defenses, and the large-scale main army entered the hunting ground with you last night. Am I right?" Hearing that Shenlang knew their whereabouts like the back of his hand, Zhong Shishir's heart sank fiercely, but she still forced herself to be calm, gritted her teeth and said in a deep voice, "So what? Today you have few people and weak power. Could it be you dare to resist us hard?" Shenlang glanced glanced at her contemptuously, his tone full of mockery. Then have you ever thought, since I could guess that you would enter the northern park hunting ground in advance, why couldn't I come to lay out the situation one step earlier than you, waiting for you to enter the trap? Zhong Miao aside immediately sneered, refuting with a face full of disdain. Shenlang, stop playing mysteries here. We have long been guarded against your dirty means. Not only did we bring all our own food, but the drinking water was also boiled repeatedly before drinking. Anything that enters the mouth is tested for toxicity in advance. I want to see what tricks you can still play to knock down our more than 2,000 people in one breath. Shenlang laughed loudly after hearing this, said very correctly, you guys really learned to be smart this time. But Zhong Shishir, a trace of cunning bad smile flashed in Shenlang's eyes. You should know about the matter of Shue Shue poisoning her foster mother, the Sword King's wife, with goo, cursed bug, poison, right? As soon as these words came out, the faces of Zhong Shishir and Zhong Miao changed drastically instantly. Could it be as they thought? Impossible. How could Shenlang easily obtain that kind of thing? Seeing their panicked reaction, Shenlang couldn't help sneering and continued, come, let Master Lang explain to you. First, ordinary severe poisons, no matter how powerful, basically have no lethality once diluted in large quantities. But there is one thing far more terrifying than these. Even in boiling water, they cannot be killed. That is the floating mountain cursed poison bugs. The most terrifying thing is that these cursed bugs can continuously self-split and self-reproduce inside the human body. Mere hundreds of cursed bugs can become tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even more within a few days. It was just letting someone drip a few drops of the Sword King's wife's blood into all the water wells in the hunting ground before you arrived at the northern park hunting ground. Guess how many cursed poison bugs were hidden in those few drops of blood? I think there must be at least several billion. Speaking to this point, he looked up and swept over the pale-faced Zhong soldiers, the corner of his mouth slightly hooking up an arc, his tone carrying a few points of playfulness. It has been 3 days since you drank the well water of the hunting ground. You might as well think carefully. How many cursed bugs have reproduced in your bodies now? By the way, I forgot to tell you, this kind of cursed poison reproduces faster the higher the bloodline. I believe among you, some people have already started to show symptoms, right? Skin becoming like a toad, covered with pitted herpes and hard skin, also becoming afraid of light, voice hoarse, and finally gradually losing sanity. Listening to Shenlang's description, Zhong Shishir's face became paler and paler, her whole body shivering uncontrollably, the toughness in her eyes long replaced by fear. Even Zhong Miao, who had always been arrogant and domineering, was scared into covering her mouth, her eyes full of panic, because only she knew, since last night, she felt her lower abdomen was faintly uncomfortable. It was just that being careless, she didn't take this matter to heart. Listening to Shenlang's description like this, a chill instantly rushed from the soles of her feet to her whole body. Could it be that what this bastard said is all true? Just then, Shenlang suddenly pointed to his lower body and continued, forgot to tell everyone, the position where this cursed poison first shows symptoms starts from the inner thigh. At first, it might just be painless and itchless herpes, and then it will become unbearably itchy, until the herpes spreads to the whole body. Then it really is difficult for even immortals to save. Listening to Shenlang's words, all the Zhong soldiers subconsciously felt discomfort in their bodies. Zhong Miao was scared out of her wits, unable to resist roaring sternly, no longer caring about dignity. Turning the horse's head, rushing towards the direction of the Zhong military camp like crazy, she sped all the way into her own tent. When she took off her armor and saw the toad skin like herpes on her inner thigh, her scalp went numb instantly, and her brain went blank. It's true, I really got hit. Immediately after, shrill wails also sounded one after another in the nearby tents. What that beast Shenlang said is true. I also have herpes on my inner thigh. So itchy, too itchy. Help, we all got hit. And Shenlang, standing in place, listening to the wails and panicked shouts coming from the Zhong military camp not far away, hooked up a cold arc on the corner of his mouth. Zhong Shishir, it seems some of your soldiers have already started to have an attack. Shishir, I remember that you, with your noble identity, have always never drunk well water, only pure spring water from the mountains, right? As soon as these words came out, Zhong Shishir's figure stiffened, and the fear in her eyes deepened a few points. However, Shenlang continued to speak unhurriedly. If I remember correctly, on Gratitude Mountain, the nearest mountain to this hunting ground, there is a cliff crack, right? From that crack, sweet spring water flows continuously all year round, seemingly your favorite. It's just, speaking to this point, a gleam of cunning flashed in Shenlang's eyes. What a coincidence. When my subordinate came back to report, he said that in order to be absolutely foolproof and leave no loopholes, he even dripped the Sword King's wife's poisoned blood into the source of that spring water. I'm afraid that every mouthful of spring water you drank after entering the hunting ground has long become a hotbed for cursed bugs to breed. As soon as these words came out, Zhong Shishir's face instantly became pale as paper, her body shaking as if she would collapse to the ground in the next second. She raised her trembling finger pointing at Shenlang, her voice hoarse and broken. Shenlang, you are lying to me, scaring me, right? Shenlang heard this, the corner of his mouth hooked lightly, and then he took out a test tube containing a weird liquid of red mixed with green and purple from his bosom. He shook the test tube gently and laughed. Why would I lie to you? There's still half a tail of poisoned blood here that hasn't been used used up. The moment Zhong Shishir's gaze fell on that test tube, a horrifying chill instantly rushed from the soles of her feet to the top of her head, the blood in her whole body seemingly coagulating. At this moment, she only felt bursts of unbearable numbness and itching coming from all over her body, as if countless tiny cursed bugs were crawling frantically and gnawing in her blood. At this moment, seeing her state, Shenlang couldn't help sneering and continued, Zhong Shishir, presumably with Xue Xue teaching by your side, you should be clearer than anyone about the toxicity of this kind of cursed bug, right? Even if luckily cured, the body and skin will be completely ruined, never able to recover to the appearance of the past. Pausing, his tone carried a few points of fake reminder. Sure, don't be too despairing either. You came relatively late. If the cursed bugs entering the body are expelled in time, there should still be enough time. But for people like Zhong Miao who have drunk well water for many days and the cursed bugs have already started to reproduce, even if cured, I'm afraid they are basically half ruined. Hearing these words from Shenlang, she instantly associated with the appearance of the Sword King's wife being tortured by the cursed poison into something neither human nor ghost, and couldn't help shivering all over, her thoughts almost collapsing. If she also turned into that ugly, unbearable ghostly appearance that everyone despised, it would be better to let her die directly, which would be more straightforward. For a time, Zhong Shishir couldn't care about anything anymore. The obsession with revenge, the face of the Zhong family, the life and death of subordinates, all became worthless in front of her beauty and life. Without saying a word, she stumbled onto the horse, not even in the mood to leave a harsh word, only thinking of rushing back to the capital to expel the cursed bugs as soon as possible. She clamped the horse's belly tightly with her legs, running wildly towards the direction of the capital without looking back. Zhong Miao and the other soldiers were being tortured by the numbness and itching in their bodies painfully at this moment. Looking up, they saw their master actually riding away wildly on her own, disappearing in a blink of an eye, and were instantly shocked, exclaiming one after another, "Miss, wait for us." In panic, they couldn't care about the discomfort on their bodies, mounting horses one by one while shouting Zhong Shishir's name, chasing desperately in the direction she left. Just like this, in just a breath's time, more than 2,000 Zhong soldiers disappeared into the dense forest of the northern park hunting ground in a sorry state. Shenlang and the others stood in place smiling at each other, their eyes full of ridicule for the fleeing Zhong Shishir. Subsequently, the laughter gradually ceased. Shenlang raised his hand to signal everyone to enter the hunting ground to settle down. Wu Lai thought again and again, but still couldn't help stepping forward to remind, "Young master, the water wells and mountain spring water in the hunting ground have been poisoned by you. Should we dig wells again to ensure drinking water safety?" Before the voice fell, Kui Chen aside couldn't help laughing. Wu Lai was stunned, then suddenly realized and exclaimed, "Young master, could it be that the matter of poisoning you mentioned was lying to Zhong Shishir and the others?" Shenlang laughed. "Of course I lied to them. The floating mountain cursed bugs are so precious. How could I bear to use them on this rabble of the Zhong family? Moreover, although these cursed bugs have incomparably powerful toxicity, they are also very fragile at the same time. They can only survive by relying on blood energy. Once they fall into water, they will die in less than a moment, completely unable to reproduce and breed." But young master, Wu Lai was still full of confusion upon hearing this. Then what is the matter with the herpes on their bodies? One by one itching painfully, looking clearly like they were poisoned by cursed bugs. Wu Lai's question hadn't been answered yet, but beside him, the Sword King Li Qianqiu's face, who had been silent all along, had turned black as the bottom of a pot. He held his forehead, unable to resist complaining secretly in his heart, "Young Master Shen, although you are kind to me as a mountain, don't let me do those dirty jobs anymore. It's really too humiliating to my identity as a great grandmaster." Shenlang was so keen, instantly sensing the Sword King's embarrassment and displeasure. The corner of his lips couldn't help rising slightly. Then he gave him an obscure but clear look. Immediately after, he turned to explain to Wu Lai, "You are right, but what is on their bodies is indeed not floating mountain cursed poison, but a plant toxin that can induce skin diseases." As the voice fell, a memory of the past emerged in Shenlang's mind. After the daughter of Count Wuan, Xueli, broke off the engagement with Jin Muzong, he used exactly the same plant toxin to punish Xueli, and the one who went to execute the poisoning task secretly at that time was also Li Qianqiu. He naturally wouldn't say this out loud. Wu Lai heard this and nodded, seemingly understanding, but then worried. "Then young master, since there's a relationship between Xue Xue, Yan Nanfei, and Floating Mountain, won't Zhong Shishir know very quickly that she was deceived? What to do if she comes to find trouble again? Could it be we have to go find His Majesty to stand up for us, asking His Majesty to send troops to expel Zhong Shishir?" Shenlang shook his head with a smile upon hearing this. "If even such a small matter requires troubling His Majesty, wouldn't it appear that I, Shenlang, am too incompetent? Rest assured, after Zhong Shishir goes back, her mind will definitely not be on the northern park hunting ground anymore." The closing sentence instantly made Wu Lai even more confused. She turned her head subconsciously, wanting to secretly ask Li Qianqiu who was following behind, but after turning her head, she found that there was no one behind her long ago. She couldn't help exclaiming, "Where did Senior Sword King disappear to?" On the other side, the frightened Zhong Shishir was riding a 1,000-mile horse running desperately towards the capital. At this moment, apart from wanting to find Shui Shui immediately to detoxify herself. The rest was cursing Shenlang non-stop in her heart. Shenlang, you beast, wait until I remove the cursed poison from my body. I will definitely tear you apart by 5 horses, crush your bones and scatter your ashes, to relieve the hatred in my heart. However, while she was full of resentment, she completely failed to notice that unknowingly, the Zhong cavalry who originally fled with her behind had long been thrown far away by her, disappearing into the vast dense forest. Just then, Li Qianqiu appeared behind her like a ghost. Before she could detect the movement behind her, he had already reached out his hand, covering her mouth and nose deadly with a ball of silk cloth soaked in knockout medicine. The whole process was fast as lightning. Zhong Shishir didn't even have time to react, and the next second her eyes went black, and she fainted directly. Seeing this, Li Qianqiu hurried to reach out and support Zhong Shishir's limp body. He lowered his eyes to look at the unconscious Zhong Shishir in his arms, his expression full of complexity and helplessness hard to conceal. Young Master Shin, next time for this kind of dirty thing, can you change someone else to do it? If this continues, I'm really a bit unable